right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's January 28th meeting of the Finance Committee. We are here in our next step in the process to hear some additional presentations on the fiscal year 26 budget prep process. Tonight, we're going to be hearing on our facilities. I don't have it in front of me where to go. Sorry, our facilities, our capital maintenance plan, as well as special education. But we'll start it off first with a bit of a maintenance of effort, the MOE update with Evan.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. I'm just going to share the spreadsheet that I have been working off of. As you all saw my PowerPoint last week. And I did provide the committee here a status or a summary of changes document that I hope will be helpful. There are 10 bullets that we can talk through. Starting with an overall facilities line is the district-wide security, which is part of the contracted services line, which had previously, I had $250,000 in there. I lowered that, and this is line 23 here. You can see taking out $250,000 and putting it back down to where it was last year for maintenance of effort standpoint to $145,000. We're actually going to be 5% under with our contracted services by that move. And in addition to that, in terms of facility, we had the construction contracts capital renewal line, which I had put in there as 600,000. Let me just find the line here. Contracted services. Sorry, I've been looking at this all day, so I'm easy to get lost. Going a little bit. Okay, capital maintenance projects. This was at previously $600,000 for facilities, but it's back down to its normal spot of $400,000. And you can see there's another line that feeds into that for a total of $500,000, which is flat to last year, a 0% increase. Second would be transportation. And this is something that goes under the transportation supply line. I apologize. Like I said, I've been looking at this all day. Essentially what I did was I took the way I had calculated the interest and the principal for these lines, which is line 46, debt service and capital leases. I had calculated this number as if one electric bus would be part of the 4 that would need replacing for this coming year. So I just took 4 regular buses, multiplied the cost by 4, and then broke out the debt service and the principal and the interest based on those numbers. And that does show a bit of a reduction by 6.2%. In addition, there was a couple of CIA curriculum lines that I changed that I had mistakenly put things in there that would theoretically be a new ask for next year. That is in the also contracted services line, which, as I had mentioned before, is decreasing by 5.2%. The supplies assessment, instructional language arts, and instructional math, I dropped those numbers back down to where they were in fiscal year 2025 to capture those savings. Number 4, the food service contingency transfer fund. I removed the $150,000 because that is a self-sustaining program, and I do not believe, along with our food service director, that we will need that contingency fund next year because the program is self-sustaining. In computer software, I removed $5,702 in the quote that I received from Tyler Technologies. They had included an accounts receivable module that had not been previously part of our software package, so I pulled that out. That is something I will be asking for in the new asks, just a little preview to that. Please disregard item number 6. It is a typo. Number 7, this is something in the third line, salaries, admin, and supervisors. I went back through the numbers after last week's meeting and realized that there were a few folks from the adult education program, which were included in this line. The maintenance of effort program, we only look at the 1,000 general fund expenses, and adult education bills to 1,500. So I mistakenly included the adult education salaries in that line. And after removing them, we're only seeing a 3% increase, as opposed to, I think it was like up over 15% previously, or 10%. In addition, secretaries and support, that line was another one that we had flagged last week as being a bit high. I dug into those numbers as well, and I found that there were 3 staff members included in my calculation that were funded by grants. So I pulled those folks out because they are not part of the 1,000 general fund. And instead, we were only seeing a 5.7 increase, whereas we were once again over double digits last week. And then finally, the Social Security, Medicare, and main retirement lines, which continue to reflect high numbers. Those are lines 18 and 19 here highlighted. I ran the numbers a few times myself, and then I had our payroll person take a look at this as well. And we attribute these high increases to the overall salary increases that the district received. So, for example, for main retirement, the teachers are all subject to main retirement, the main PERS program, and that's also paraprofessionals, and there are administrators under the PLD program that are also subject to main PERS costs to the district. And the same thing can be said for the Social Security and Medicare. The higher salaries are attributed or are what are driving the higher Social Security and Medicare costs. So overall, if we look at what that does, all these changes for our overall maintenance of effort, I'm showing a 4.71% increase over last year. And that brings us up to $57 million for next year.
The 3 secretary positions, couple of questions about those. So they're funded by grants, and we know those grants will continue?
That's the plan, yeah.
And were those in there in previous years?
Not in the general fund. They were outlined in they weren't calculated in the overall budget that was voted upon. They were I'll
They've always been on this grant money and.
Correct, yep.
Okay. So they didn't move.
Correct.
Okay.
They were never part of this fiscal year 2025 calculation.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's what I should have asked.
So
That's what I meant to ask.
right. And then digging into those numbers allowed me to determine that they should not be included in the 26
Got
calculation.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Special ed secretary, yep. Yeah, that's a very good example.
Hudson, did you have a question, or you all set? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say how much I appreciate your change tracking document and the clear, thorough attention you give in the document. So thank you.
Yeah, please disregard number 6. That was not supposed to be in there. That was something that was a note to myself, and then it ended up in the notes here. But otherwise, I'm glad it was helpful. All right, let me share this information that I have gathered about the fund balance, if that's helpful for folks.
Yes.
Please.
Okay. Okay. Wait, that's not the one I want. Sorry. Okay, so the way, essentially what I want to point out is I'll start with the fourth box, fiscal year 2026. Essentially, the unaudited number that we have calculated, which is taking the fund balance from 2022, which is audited, adding in revenue and subtracting out expenditures, and then kind of playing it through these next couple fiscal years, is that our unaudited 2024, 2025 general fund balance should be about $9.5 million. There is 2.6 of that, which we have to use as our, or excuse me, so 2.7 is 5% of the operating budget, which we need to, which I believe there's some instructions up here. Unallocated fund balances of excess of 5% of the previous fiscal year school budget must be used to reduce the state and local share of the total allocation for the purpose of computing the state subsidy. So, sorry, I'm also trying to figure this out here a little bit on the fly, but we do need to, this is the number that the state will essentially attribute to our ED 279. In addition, we have to spend $3.9 million throughout the next 3 years. We need to make a plan to draw down $3.9 million over the next 3 years, which is the second sheet that I have included.
On top, and we all, and the 2.7 has to be accounted for in this year's budget,
Correct,
or used in this year's budget. not
correct,
accounted
yep. I am also, these numbers right here, the balance assigned to the 2025, 2026 budget and the balance assigned to the capital reserve account. These are numbers that I have taken from previous years on, for example, this $200,000 is something that we transferred over the past 4 fiscal years into a reserve capital account. And then this is just a mimicking of this number so that we can have some kind of visibility into it. I believe that this number is a little bit heavy. I would say that take this number with a grain of salt and expect maybe not as high of a number, just because it's unaudited and we want to be conservative with how we think about our fund balance without having such good visibility into it.
And when do we expect we will get an audited fund balance?
Our deadline from the state is March 31st, and I know our auditors are currently working towards that date.
But haven't promised anything.
Nothing yet. They have been in contact with us and they have been asking questions, which is good progress, but I know that they just said to this point, they're still working towards March 31st.
Man, if we fund a field the year after Brandy leaves, that would be kind of funny.
That's fine.
In previous years, as you can see in the little note here at the top, 2021/2022 through 2024, 2025, the state was allowing unallocated balances to be 9%. They haven't said whether or not they're going to continue with that 9% is what you're allowed to keep in your fund balance, but I am using 5% conservatively just because I think that's the smarter plan, because that could be a significant amount of money.
Yeah, Hudson would know better than me, but I think they have to put in a bill to change it to anything, but not in like, to make the 5 anything different. And as far as no bills are in now.
That's my understanding. There's a list of 200+ bills that might affect education. And I think so far we've looked at like only 30 of them or so have been in a position to even be looked at. So it's possible it's coming, but it hasn't made its way to the MSBA yet.
All right, any more questions? All right, thank you, Evan. I really appreciate you going back and digging into this and
Yeah.
organizing all the information. It's such a great way for us to see where we're at, so thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we will hand it off to Sean for the capital maintenance plan.
Okay. Here we go. So tonight's just a proposal or presentation for our proposed capital construction funding for this coming year. I'll just kick it off with the mission of the facilities team. Take pride in working to create a safe and healthy atmosphere to foster learning and community activity. Our goal is to maintain all facilities to the best possible operational standard, improve building efficiencies, complete thoughtful long-range planning and capital improvements, and minimize disruption and interruption to the learning process. How do we identify projects? Each building has a maintenance and improvement plan that outlines and identifies our forecasted capital and major maintenance needs. Identified items are given a priority code based on the information below. Proposed projects are chosen based on priority level and/or program needs. So while we do try to focus on priority one, currently critical items, lower priority items will be prioritized based on program needs as well. So we have the 5 priorities here: currently critical, potentially critical, should be addressed in 1 to 2 years, necessary but not yet critical, 3 to 5 years, functional need, required or desired to bring a facility up to perform as it should, including systems upgrades and aesthetic issues. Priority 5, which doesn't meet current code but does not require us to bring it up to current code due to being grandfathered. So anybody have any questions on that? Okay. So our FY26 proposed capital construction budget request is $700,000. Capital construction has been underfunded for many years, and we need to continue to increase these funds in an effort to address deferred maintenance and ongoing capital needs. MSAD 75 is a good portfolio of buildings, many of which are aging and costly to maintain. In the following slides, I'll go through each project and give you a summary of what is included in all of the $700,000. At Adult Ed, the center, so I'll give you a brief rundown of the slides. So I've put the building, I've put the general year construction of each building, the project, and a little description of the project. And then I also included down below some forecasted capital construction needs, just to give you guys a quick visual of things that are coming up within the next few years. So we're asking to do an intrusion alarm system here at Adult Ed. This is the only building in the district that doesn't have a security intrusion alarm. And I propose that we add one to that building. It was on last year's capital improvement list, and it did get bumped just due to some other higher needs that had shown itself, such as Bodenham. So this is one that we figured we could push off to another year. A forecasted capital construction need for this particular building is a roof, and the estimated year would be FY27. Estimated cost and today's cost is $320,000 for that. So just to give you a glimpse in the near future. Next project is at Bodenham Community School. Again, just to give you a general year of construction of that building, 66, 80s, mid 80s, and then early 90s. Proposed project is the life skills alteration to room 15, I believe is the room number. Bodenham has recently been hosting a special ed life skills program in that building. in an effort to keep local students at their own community school versus sending them to a different school in the district. In order to safely operate the program, it has been identified that we need to make some building alterations, such as the addition of a sensory room and a bathroom within this space. Alterations to accommodate these changes will require an occupancy change, which will require us to get permitting through the State Fire Marshal's office. Future forecasted needs for Bodenham, the 1992 edition, the windows are beginning to fail in that part of the building. And we need to start planning for replacement of those windows. I estimated it cost them $150,000, and we can talk about that maybe next year. Next project is at Harpswell Community School. This building dates back to the 50s, the original section of this building, so this one's got some age to it too. But our proposed project is to replace the main entry doors, door number 1. Estimated cost $25,000. Door 1 is the main entry to the building and has reached the end of its useful life. The jambs are beginning to rot out, and the door panels are showing signs of failure. It's hard to keep this door secure, and maintenance is becoming more difficult. This door doesn't have a good center mullion on it either, which it helps with being able to secure the door. This door could be pried open pretty easily. So I feel like we need to make an effort to replace that. Forecasted capital needs will be the 1996 edition, which is the library area, is coming due for replacement. So you'll see that in next year's proposed capital projects.
Sean?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yep.
It's all good. I was just curious, knowing that the sort of Harpswell main entrance goes directly to stairs, has there ever been consideration about adjusting what the main entrance is over there? Just as we're thinking about replacing the door, I was just curious if there's.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's been studied a little bit in the past. When we applied for replacement funding through the state for this site, and part of that package at the time was to move the main entry over to the center of the building where Anita's office is now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. But I think we need to just look at Harpswell kind of all together as a whole, and I'm hoping that our master plan will help us maybe guide us with some direction on that. So that's tough. It's a tough building with stairs into classrooms, stairs at the main entryway. There's a lot of areas that are not accessible in that building.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, you're welcome. Next project is next 2 projects are at Mount Arrett Middle School. That building was built back in 2001. So we've proposed to start spending some money on flooring in that building. Again, I'll mention it was built in 2001. It has all original flooring, so original hard flooring, original carpeting. That carpeting is really starting to show signs of wear and tear now, and we definitely need to start picking away at it. I don't think $50,000 will get us too far with flooring. However, I think we need to start somewhere. And looking at the big picture of the overall request for funding this year, we don't want to request too much money for flooring, but I think we need to start to pick away at it. So you might see this as a recurring request in the next few years as we just begin to pick away at it. There's also a water source heat pump unit that has failed over there or is failing, and it's just extremely costly to repair. In order to repair this unit, we'd have to drop it out of the ceiling. It's a fairly decent sized unit. It's built into the ceiling of the kitchen cafeteria area. And in order to make repairs, we need to drop it down from the ceiling. It's not cost effective to repair it and put it back up. A repair would be a temporary repair. And we'd only probably get 2 to 4 years out of that temporary repair. So I'm proposing that we actually replace that unit with a new unit. And that'll be at a cost of about $50,000. Future forecasted construction needs over there is the roof. So that roof is coming due in the next few years, and it's a large roof. As you can see, the estimated cost there at today's cost, it's about 1.7. So that building's going to cost us some money in the future to put a new roof on it. So you'll hear more about that in the coming years. Oh, yes, certainly, yes.
Yeah, the HVAC replacement,
Yes.
is that the HVAC for the entire school, or is that just one of many units?
One of many.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There's two primary units that serve the kitchen cafeteria. We're able to run on one of them, so we don't have to overtax the second one. But it's definitely, we definitely want to get the second one back up and functioning as it should. You're welcome. I will mention that while our roof is forecasted, the current roof is inspected on, all of our roofs are inspected on an annual basis, and we do preventative maintenance and service to our roofs on an annual basis. So while the roofs are coming due, they are serviced and they are in currently good condition, but aging out.
Actually, sorry. And generally speaking, are we getting 25, 30 years expected life on a roof?
We're 30 plus.
Okay, but well, I guess anything we are replacing, we would expect to get similar lifestyle.
Yes, correct,
Great.
yes.
Thank you.
The next project is, I've kind of classified this as a Mount Arrett High School, and it's kind of a combination of the high school and middle school, but this is the annex press box. Sure some of you have seen this as you drive by the annex building from going from the high school to the middle school. The press box roof is failing. It's kind of a funny building. We moved this building from the old athletic facility to the annex field during the construction of the high school. As you can see, the roof is ready to be replaced. And, you know, one of my long-term plan for this building, I don't have a good answer on that quite yet.
What's the short-term plan for? What does it do right now?
It's used for minimal amounts of storage for athletics. I don't know that it's used very well. I will say that this building's broken into often and vandalized quite a bit.
If we had to find a new home for the stuff that's in there, would that be doable?
I would say it would be.
Would some of it fit upstairs at the center?
Yes, some of it obviously probably, there's not a lot in there, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
It's pads and things like that.
I'm not sure it's worth fixing.
I struggle a little bit because the district invested some money to move it over here. You know, we poured a slab for it. We moved it over. We spent some money, so, and I just don't know what the ultimate goal was, but
But 5 years later, if we're not using it, you know,
it's tough to throw $20,000 at it.
yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna add, so historically, like, what's the significance of this building? Why was it moved? No one knows that at this point, or?
I don't have that answer. I'm gonna reach out to Chris Hoffman and Jeff Godo to talk a little bit about
Okay.
that and see what their ultimate plan was, but it's my understanding this used to be the press box at the
Well, that's
old
what it looked
athletic
like.
facility.
But the new field doesn't seem.
No, and
And-
I don't see, there's no power to the building, like, we're never gonna put power to the building to run what? At the annex field, the annex is a practice field that we use minimally, I think, at this point, so.
Is it providing easier access though to things for something? Like, is it a quicker access to certain equipment and things like that for folks? Is there an accessibility access to this that we are potentially worth exploring or asking about?
Yeah, I'm sure somebody would argue that it's storage and it's valuable, but I just need to find that person.
That's what you have not found that person
No,
yet
no,
at this
I
time.
haven't had that conversation.
$20,000 worth of. Okay,
Exactly.
thank you, sorry.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The quick question I had was building, is it building 68? Or what do we call the building by the middle school, the brick building that has a lot of random stuff
Oh,
in it? that's-
376.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just throwing out numbers.
Yeah.
Is this building have any opportunity down the road to be expanded upon or anything to help fulfill a need that we currently use in that building that we don't feel is a go forward option or not? Quick answer, maybe not a chance, but.
I would
Just
say
curious.
no.
Okay.
I don't think we could, I mean, there's fairly small entry doors on this. I don't think we could properly get equipment in and out.
Okay. Something to think about.
I think so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on, Williams Cone School. This is an aging building as well. Dates back to the 50s, 50, 59, 64, addition in 66, and then we connected the two buildings in 97. So The 97 edition really didn't do anything for the programming or the classroom spaces really at all. So I do just want to highlight, this is an older building. We have some roofs to replace on this building. The cone section as well as the connector. Estimated cost for the cone is around 200,000 and estimated cost for the connector is around 80. So both these roofs are coming up on 30 years old. Additionally, the cone roof didn't have tapered insulation put on the rooftop when they originally did it like 30 years ago. So it retains a lot of water. That should have an insulated tapered roof system to move the water to the interior roof drains. And I recently had a meeting with the consultant who helped design it 30 years ago. And he told me that to cut costs, we opted not to put the tapered insulation. And now that building retains water quite a bit. So I want to make sure that when we do it this time, we definitely put that tapered system in so that we get the roof to drain appropriately. It'll also add a little bit of insulation for us too, so it'll help with energy loss directly out the roof. Yes.
What's the age on the Williams School roof?
The Williams School roof, I'd be happy to follow up with you on that, but it's not as old. I think I want to say we did it within the past 8 or 9 years. There's one small section of I don't want to speak out of line. I have all the dates.
Much new.
It's much newer it's much newer than these two. It's not due yet. Oh, right here, look at the bottom here. So forecasted capital construction needs roof, cone, window replacement. So there is some forecasted roofs in the future, but I would have to get you the exact dates. And I'll also highlight too that, and I think most of you were on the site walk for the facilities tour, like the cone window systems are getting really bad over there. And we're starting to see some insulated panels that are starting to rot out around those windows. And again, we need to figure out what we're doing with the Williams Cone School in the next 5-10 years, and if it's going to be a long-term school for us or not. And I'm hoping the master plan helps us determine that.
Just building upon that, is it, you feel like that it's an urgency this year that the roof is done? I mean, close to $300,000, or is it something we could try to understand better longer term and buy a year, or is that something you feel like it feels like what you're saying here is it needs it now?
So if we wanted to, we could push off the connector roof for a few years, but I think the cone is due and we need to
Okay.
deal with the cone.
Once they're up there, it's probably.
Well, that's the
more
thing. Once they're
cost-effective
mobilized
just
to
to
the
do.
site,
Yep.
I just felt like it was, let's pick it off while they're there. It'd probably be a cost savings while they're already on site. However, if we wanted to look for some cost savings to reduce this budget, we could definitely push the cone off a couple of years. The connector off a couple of years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next project, Woodside Elementary School. This building was built in 1991. And we're proposing a fire alarm replacement for that building. This fire alarm is original to the building. It's no longer supported equipment. Parts are becoming harder and harder to find, and they're no longer manufactured at this point. So anytime we need a replacement part, whether it's a detector or anything else for that building, we're trying to look for somebody that might have some attic stock, and it's kind of hit or miss. So the panel's currently in working order, and it currently serves its purpose, but I would like to plan for replacement over there instead of being forced into an emergency replacement or repair, which could, an emergency failure of that system could interrupt the school, and we wouldn't be able to be occupied at the time, so. We really need to address this one, so.
How old is that system?
It's 1991, so we're over 30. Yeah, original to the building, yeah. And I feel like the cost seems a little high on this one, and I estimated a little bit high because I feel like we need to not just replace the panel itself, but we need to rewire the building too. So I don't feel like the existing wiring will meet current code once we replace the panel, so we'll be forced to rewire all the detectors as well. So again, it just adds cost.
And
Yes.
looking at your forecast there, are the roofs original to the building? I know the envelope has been redone, but
Yeah, yeah, so the roof is original and the envelope was replaced 15 years ago. That whole building is gonna need a similar envelope replacement to what we're dealing with at the middle school too. We have a meeting with CHA who's doing an envelope study over there, and they're supposed to come back to us with a cost estimate for the envelope replacement the beginning of February. So we should start to be able to see some cost for what that looks like and potential phasing plans for that. So, but yeah, Woodside's gonna cost us some money. And I will highlight, I think, in my opinion, I think Woodside's a long-term building for us. I think it's worth investing in. I don't see us decommissioning that building anytime soon. So I mean, we need another 30 years out of that building. So that's what I see the case. And there's just a general snapshot of all the projects and kind of the bottom line. And I do present at the facilities committee level of a 5-year look ahead for these projects too. If anybody wishes to see that doesn't come to those meetings, I'm happy to share that with folks. We're trying to set out a projected 5-year plan that we can continue to pick away at, and so that we're not being surprised with too much of this stuff and that we're talking about it.
Is the difference in the 591 and the 700,000,
Say that again.
the difference in the 591 and the proposal at the beginning, the 700,000?
Yes,
Is that,
so, so the 700, okay, so the 591, let me make sure I know this. There's $100,000 that rolls up into this line for consulting services, which is for design, and we're using it this year for the master plan.
Yeah.
So that extra $100,000 rolls up into this,
so it's part of the 525?
part of the 500.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's not part of the
It's,
525.
it's not.
It's on, that's what brings us to the 7, is the extra 100 for consulting services, which is the master plan for this year. So I said it at the facilities committee level, I think we need to maintain that $100,000 because there's always gonna be needs for consulting services for future planning. And if we don't have that, then we're taking that money from whether it's capital improvements or whether it's somewhere else, we're looking for money for consulting. So I think it's really important that we maintain that extra 100 for
And
consulting.
Not to revisit our last facilities meeting too, but it sounded like that there's an evolution to the costs of the master plan and different potential ways to tackle it, but there may be a little bit of additional expense in future year that we already know of. Right?
That's correct, yes.
At Holly, and then
Just curious, have you been using the full 100,000 for the consulting every year or?
We use every bit of the capital construction funding, yes. And we could use more.
I'm really glad to see us sort of increasing our investment after obvious many years of underinvestment. And I'm curious, and it's okay if the answer is no, you don't know, but do you have an idea on what the target that we want to land at for a more steady investment would be? With obviously some sort of percentage increase year over year, but like, are we looking at, should we be spending $1 million a year? Should we be spending $1.5 million? Like, and if you don't have a sense, that's okay. I'm just sort of wondering what our long-term
Yeah.
target is.
Yeah, and off the head, I would say we should probably be reinvesting about $1 million back into the facilities each year. Yeah. In capital construction. Yeah. And I say that based on like, I'm always a little nervous of how much can we complete and how much can we successfully get done in a year, and that's always the balance too, right? So if we're picking off large projects that are $300,000, $400,000 projects, for roofs and things like that, I mean, there's no problem to hit that $1 million. And then keep in mind too that our bond money for our site work, for our site improvements is going to fall off soon too. So while we might have another year, maybe two, I'm doubtful that we'll have two, but we at least have another year of paving improvements to be able to pick away at. That money's gonna fall off too, and it's, how do we wanna fund that stuff? Do we wanna fund it in the operating budget under capital construction, or do we wanna start pulling more bonds out? I think it's a balance, and hopefully Evan and all of us can figure out how to make that balance work, but there's needs. So.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
We good? Any more questions at all? All right, thanks for the summary, and the way you presented each request too was much appreciated, that you had the foresight too to include to it, so really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, and we will move on to special education, and Amy.
I think Heidi is uploading, is that right? Are you gonna upload it?
Yeah.
Now we're on there. Yeah.
I forgot to tell them.
I can certainly print copies, or you're gonna upload them. Either way. Okay. All right. Thanks for inviting me to talk a little bit about our special education services in the district and sort of where I see the needs in our department. I'll start by sharing a little bit of data, just sort of high-level data in terms of our percentages of students that are identified for special education across the district, by school, and over the years. And we can look a little bit at the trends, and then more specifically about specific disability categories and what the numbers look like in those disability categories, and sort of what that tells us about the needs of our kids. And then that will feed into a little bit of some needs for the new budget, some new positions that I'm requesting, and also some reductions. So this is a graph that shows the number of students over the years identified for special education. And you can see, starting in 2017, we really every year would have a little bit of a jump in our numbers. And we've sort of seen that uptick in recent years of students being identified for special education for the first time this year. And now this is a moving target as well. You know, it depends on who the kids we have. It depends on enrollment. So you sort of have to take it with a grain of salt. But I am pleased to see this number coming down a little bit. I think this is a reflection of some of the work we're doing across the district in our Tier 2 supports for kids, trying to support kids more strategically at a less restrictive level. Also, potentially some changes in our Tier 1 curriculum, move to more work on the science of reading. So kids are really getting that phonics instruction in the classroom setting and not needing to go down the hall to another classroom in order to get that. And then we've really been working hard. We participated in a state audit the last couple of years, and we've been working hard to just really shore up our systems and our protocols across all of our programs and all of our buildings, and specifically our process for identifying kids for special education, really looking at that process and making sure that we're following the process and doing a lot of professional development around that. So I think we could continue to see those numbers come down a little bit, which would be nice. So this is the same graph, or the same information, but by building. And the blue bar is last school year, and the red bar is this school year so far. You'll notice some, like I think I spoke about last year when I was here, and I know it even got mentioned in Sean's presentation. We're really working hard to help kids receive their education in their community schools whenever possible. And that has a lot of different benefits. It has benefits for the more typically developing kids in the schools, as well as it's easier to provide students with opportunities for inclusion when the density of need is not quite so high. And we really got to a point over the years where the density at Woodside was so significant that those things became hard, those goals became hard to reach. So over the last 5 years or so, we've been growing programs at all of our elementary schools. And so, for example, you see the uptick at Harpswell, and that is due to, we added some resources down there and some students with more complicated needs that in previous years we would have provided programming for them at Woodside are getting programming in their community school this year. You can see Woodside's coming down a little bit. Bodenham, actually, we opened a functional life skills program there. So it was surprising at first to me that number was coming down, but Bodenham had a really large 5th grade class with a lot of students with IEPs that moved on to the middle school this year. So I think that number is due to that change. The district remains steady-ish. I think we were 25% last year, 24 this year. And the last state reported average is still from 2022. Same average I reported to you last year at 19.5. So we're above the state average, and it's something that we keep in mind and are continuing to look at. So this is a bar graph that shows there are specific disability categories that students can qualify for special education under. And I just kind of use this graph to highlight the disability categories in light blue are disabilities that really impact students' abilities to function in school. Other health impairment is ADHD and ADD typically, so it's students that have difficulty with attention and hyperactivity. And then you can see emotional disturbance. Multiple disabilities is often students that have really very complex needs and might have several of those light blue disabilities, or even some of the light blue and some of the dark blue. So we're really, I think, we have seen a shift in the needs of our students over the years, and our students are having, many more of our students are having a hard time functioning in the school setting. And it's something that we're working hard to support and sort of adjust to, and it leads into my budgetary requests for the upcoming budget. So I know that I spoke at the board meeting a couple weeks ago, and we shared the posting for the board certified behavior analyst, or a BCBA, and we are asking for a full-time BCBA at Mount Ararat School, at the middle school, and then also to increase 2 of our functional life skills para positions at the high school from 30 hours a week to 35 hours a week. And I'll talk about each of these individually. So we want to be as proactive as possible. And to be proactive, we need to understand why students are having difficulty functioning in school. I wanted to share a little bit of data with you around the percentage of students with IEPs that are suspended at the middle school and the high school. So last year, 63% of the incidents of suspensions were students that were identified for special education. No, sorry, that's this year. Last year, 50%, this year, 63% at the middle school, and then similar numbers, around 50% last year and this year at Mount Ararat High School. And we would like to move the needle on that. We want kids to be in school. We want to understand why they're having difficulty and adjust their interventions to address the why. And a board certified behavior analyst is a role on our IEP teams that can help us conduct assessments that help look at the why and then help us design and implement interventions to help keep kids in school. So in our department, we talk a lot about kids do well if they can. And this is a belief that if students could do well, they would do well. If a student's not functioning well at school, something's getting in their way. And so, like I said, BCBAs are trained to conduct specialized and collaborative assessments to help us understand the why so we can intervene and support way before we get to the point of suspension. Once we get to a suspension, we're too late. Really, it's not helping the child. So I believe I spoke at the board meeting. We do have BCBAs as part of our teams now, but we contract for those services. So we might have a BCBA that comes to an IEP meeting and then comes a couple times a month and meets with the team. I really feel strongly that if we have a BCBA as part of our school team at the school every day, especially at the middle and high school level, our ability to design interventions and then implement them with fidelity and adjust, in real time, will make a big difference for our kids.
And so is it possible there'll be some savings in that contracted
Yes.
service line once we've? Great.
Yes, yeah. So last year, when I presented, I asked to increase a number of functional life skill para positions at Woodside from 30 to 35 hours. So I did share this rationale last year. For a paraprofessional who works who is in a 30-hour position, they arrive when the students arrive and they leave when the students leave. So there's really no time for planning and collaboration. And when you work with a population that has such complex needs, this can be very stressful on the team. And we really need that additional time for the paras with the teachers in order to implement the complex plans. So we had talked about increasing in our programs for our kids with the most complex needs, increasing those paras over the years a little bit at a time from 30 to 35 hours. To meet that need, we increased last year in our 3 elementary FLS programs. We have 35-hour paras this year. I actually moved some people around and was able to move 2 35-hour positions from the center over to the middle school. So they have their 2 positions. So if we increase these 2 positions to 35 hours at the high school, all of our functional life skills programs will have 2 35-hour positions in them. Yeah.
Put a lot of support behind that from what I've heard from paras over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And also ask what the first year, as far as feedback you've gotten, has looked like.
Very extremely positive. I think, the ability to support the teacher and to adjust on the fly, and the principals are just over the moon. And sometimes you have events that happen during the school day that you need to debrief, and to keep our paras healthy and, to care for them so that they can do this really hard work. It provides opportunities for all those things.
Yeah, I think that it's not realistic to expect a para to arrive at the same time as students and roll right into it without any coordination from the lead teacher in the classroom, and then to not have a debrief period at the end of the day is not in the best interest of our students.
Yeah. I agree.
I was just going to add
Yeah.
that I have a family member in functional life skills programs out of state. She's in
Mhm.
Connecticut, but her family is struggling with what to do with the transition out of elementary school into middle school because the support level is different. And I'm just so proud of what you're doing to achieve a consistent level of service and care for students as they proceed through the district. So I couldn't support this more. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. So this is something that's just come up in the last week or so. Evan met with Mark Conrad last week, and this is a need that we wanted to sort of put on your radar, but we don't have a ton of details about the projected cost. So as you know, we, in the special ed department, we receive reimbursement through main care for some of our services. We bill for speech and language, OT, we bill for some of our BHP, our behavioral health professionals that work one-on-one with kids. We bill for their services, and we continue to look to ways to expand that program in order to access that revenue so that we can do an even better job for the kids. So my limited understanding of this is that, so we bill main care and they reimburse us, but then we have to hold seed money because we have to end up basically paying them back a portion of that, 30%. And the federal government pays the other portion. And what Mark said was that there's been an increase in either that percentage or the billable rate.
It's the reimbursement rate.
The reimbursement rate.
So the vendors like your Woodford's Family Services or Sweetser, they were finding that they couldn't afford to keep staff members, so they needed to increase their rates.
Yeah.
And according to Mark, they just changed their rates and didn't
Yeah.
inform the greater state of Maine people participating in this. So it's come at close to a 40 to 50% increase.
So that's on the daily rate, though. So for example, can go anywhere from, well, I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but it can go anywhere from $200 a day to $360 per day per student. And so each year, each of the private schools in Maine will increase that rate, and then we have to do back pay to them for the times that we haven't paid that daily rate for the whole year. So that's a little bit different. I'm not sure that, I think he was talking about that.
Mhm.
This is different. The main care line, we're just billing more. And private schools are billing more because the students are there on more attendance. And so in the past, when I was the special ed director, we were able to not pay for days that students were out of district. So that if they weren't there on a day, we didn't pay for it. But now we pay for it regardless if they're there or not. And that combined with the increase of daily rate is why the costs have gone up and can be. But this, when we bill for main care, it's the cost of that person is a specific rate, and
Yeah.
Amy gets that. And so we are paying more on those lines, the seed lines, in our budget, in the special ed budget. I think we had 150 and 100,000 or something.
I think we had 100,000 in the private line and 50,000 in the public line, and we need to increase both of those.
Yeah, because we're billing more in the public line, and that means that we would owe more seed money, because we've actually really, Amy and her team, Amy Hamilton, has done a really good job really upping ours. We get about 70% of that reimbursement total. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit confusing, I know, but when we bill for those services, we technically, private schools get 100%, school districts only get about 70%, right? Because we have to pay about 30% back to DHS and the state of Maine. I know, it's not
And then
really
that
fair.
comes out of the general fund. So the special ed fund, we hold some seed money so that we can move it over to the general fund when that 30% comes due.
Yeah.
So seed basically means like starter, which is what that means.
Let me tell you this, it's a match, it's a federal match for main care. So what it is, like, we're getting reimbursed for that, and we leave 100,000 in there because when we bill it, we're anticipating paying about 30% of that back. We get the revenue, but then we have to give back 30% approximately.
Right. My understanding was that we get 100% from the state when we bill. And then the federal government pays them back for 70% of that, and we have to pay them back for 30% of that. But it comes down the line.
Just give us 70.
I know.
Is that correct? Like, if they just gave us 70%, we'd be in the same place?
think so, but it's not the way it works. Yes,
Except for the time lag.
yes, exactly.
So we have to keep money in the fund
To
to
pay
cover
back
that
that
30%
30%.
that's going
Yeah,
back.
exactly.
Because we
And-
know it's not really
Right.
ours. We can't,
It's not
we have to
really
hold
ours.
on to it.
Exactly. It's sort of like a savings account for when that comes due.
For-
But we don't have enough in those lines right
So
now.
so
We
right
need-
now. all
But
of a
we don't
sudden, if
really know
our
how
bills
much
came due,
we need to.
we wouldn't have enough. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Be on our balance sheet. And that's why we need that money to be able to reimburse it.
It sounds like when you sell gift cards at a restaurant, you have to have the funds of the gift cards available all the times in case they all came due at once.
Yeah,
So this is a very similar situation.
Right.
yeah. Private schools get to bill 100% because they
Mhm.
don't have as many students there, so they need all the money that they can in order to run their programs.
The special purpose
The
schools.
special purpose. Not North Yarmouth Academy. We're
No.
talking about Spurwink and
Right.
Switzer and all those.
So it's a factor that we sort of just came to light at the end of last week that we're working on getting more details, but I just wanted to give you that really good explanation.
So the overall price for the services went up? Or did you say the percent that we have to give to, state of Maine went, the overall prices went?
The daily rates of the schools,
Okay.
which is different than,
And they're
Yeah.
set by the schools?
yes, they can choose this, I should say.
Mhm.
The schools, the state gives them a certain range and the schools determine what they want to charge.
Really, I bet a lot of them go at the bottom.
Yeah, they do. That's pretty cheap.
So we'll keep more kids in their schools and we won't have to send them to the special purpose private schools by
Yes, that's the
bolstering our
long-term goal.
services.
That is the
Yeah.
long-term goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Where
right.
does that cost show up?
It'd be in contracted services.
Okay.
And I haven't included any increases in that just yet because we're still looking to get more information.
The, which cost, the seed?
The seed, yeah.
The
so
seed, there's 2 lines in the special ed allocation, right?
Yeah, and then
One
it gets
for
all
pub-
rolled up
Oh,
by object code into
okay.
contracted services.
We don't see all the little
Gotcha.
teeny lines.
Yeah.
We can barely keep track of the
fair.
top tier.
Okay,
line.
Makes sense.
I take that back. We totally can keep track of it. We're keeping track of it down to the penny.
So I'm proposing to reduce to help offset the cost, 3 of paraprofessional positions that have been unfilled for a number of years. And then also, as was mentioned, I estimate about $25,000 that we spend at the middle and high school for BCBA services that we will no longer need in our contracted services line that we can put towards the additional BCBA's.
Are the 3 that you're proposing to eliminate, are they unfilled
Yes.
because no one is taking the job, qualified for the job, or we don't really need them?
I think they remained unfilled because we didn't find anyone that was qualified for the job. But I think hiring professionals such as a BCBA really allows us to, sometimes we can use a paraprofessional to help support a kid throughout the day, but not necessarily move them forward towards independence. And so the BCBA, I think, will allow us to make more progress with kids in the same direction, rather than having someone sort of with them acting as their frontal lobe, coaching them through the day. We can put plans into place to help kids be more proactive. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's hard to find qualified paraprofessionals, for sure. And actually, that landscape is looking a little bit better. We're having a better, easier time hiring. But this is something when I met with the principals that they were willing to trade in to get a BCBA.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yes,
Because-
this came from Megan sort of started this. She was willing to exchange 2 paraprofessionals for a BCBA, and then we sort of worked up to the high school and figured out how to get.
So
another
those are
one.
middle school and high school positions?
Yeah.
Because from the parent perspective, and hearing from
Mhm.
others whose children have IEPs, I know in past years, it's been incredibly difficult to find more bodies in a classroom. At the elementary level, that's really hard because they're just
Yeah.
lacking the executive function skills. They're
Yep.
so young.
Yep.
And then, they seem to wane off in the older years, but sometimes you just need an extra set of hands. And so my only concern with this is eliminating that extra set of hands. Although I'm very supportive of the BCBA
Yes.
proposal too. So I
Yep.
just want to say both of those
Yep.
things. I'm a little nervous about
Yeah.
eliminating the 3
Yeah,
pairs.
I think that's probably wise, and given your experience, that, and the hard thing is that it fluctuates so much. Like, we could have these paraprofessional, we could not have a need, and then you could have a need, 3 kids could move into the district that need one-on-ones, and then you have a need again. So it's a bit of a moving target. So it is a bit of a risk cutting the positions, but I think given our goals, that if we need to reduce in order to get those additional positions, that's a logical place to do it.
Well, and if it did fluctuate and you needed, you guys could come back to the board to approve a position in the middle of the year outside of the budget. Like, if you needed it.
If we need it.
You need it.
We need it, and we'll make a case for it, and, yeah.
Amy's also done a really good job managing her local entitlement budget, and that looks to, I don't have an official amount yet, but it looks to have some carryover that might be some that we could leave in a reserve line for the federal grant.
Because, looking at this and just thinking very roughly, that's probably going to get us a good amount of the way there to the 2 BCBAs and the additional hours for the 2 paras, I would imagine. Like, great.
That's all I have. Any questions? Any additional questions for me? Okay.
All right,
you.
yeah, I would just like to say thank you for all the thoughtful work you did to get here and
Thank you.
understanding the challenges and reacting to your needs and figuring out a way to service the kids as well as we can.
Thank
So,
you. I appreciate the
Great
support.
job.
What is the pool of BCBAs?
Well, that's a good
High
question.
school, what does that look like?
There seems to be a lot of them in the private sector.
Yeah.
So it's a wondering whether we'll be able to hire.
Particular degree?
Yes. Yeah, it's a certification.
And where do you get that?
You can get it I believe you can get it at USM.
They have a really, really big, robust program.
but-
You can go and
Scale
hire
people.
their top
I think there's a lot of value in recruiting and sort of starting to talk to some BCBAs that I work with now, and
Okay,
um,
good luck.
yeah, yeah. We'll still be contracting at the elementary level. But we do have our behavior strategists at the elementary level, so we have sort of a behavior specialist in each building as a support person. So we built that infrastructure, years ago at the elementary level, and I think putting the same things into place at the middle and high school level could make a big difference.
All right, thank you, Amy. And no more questions there. I think we will move on to public comment, I think is what we have next. And without any, does anybody else have any more questions, comments, or anything about what we heard this evening? Thank you very much, you guys. Really appreciate all the work to get here. Yeah, Hudson.
Just as we are around the corner from the start of February, I guess I was going to just ask to double check that we're sending out invitations to the town government people about the early March meeting, which usually happens to the superintendent's office, but just a reminder to make sure you get those invites out. Sooner. Yes.
I bet she
Agreed.
does, but I will send an email and copy you, Heidi.
And
Heidi, and
And I might suggest maybe we invite our state reps and senators as well.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
4 of them, right?
Yeah.
4. I don't know that they would come, but it might be worth giving them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't saying that because I thought that they wouldn't want to come, but I know session is happening right now, and so that was.
Conflicts may arise. All right. Well, with that, we will see you guys all back here next Monday, I believe. Or the Monday? I think it's next month. It's going to Monday for the next couple, I think. Was. It's all right. Thank you all. Thank you, Nick.